What specific actions will you take to balance environmental protection with responsible economic use of public lands? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. And I think we need to look at what we've got, right? If we look at our public lands, they are alive and active ecosystems. They are not static, right? They're always changing. And we know that the very real threat of warmer summers is putting pressure on those very sensitive ecosystems, forests, for example. And we know that if we don't take action, that we can see harm come to those. And that's where, when I think about your question about protection, how are you going to protect them? Whether it's from, overuse or from climate change. And so that protect is important. Protect means to harm, or to protect, keep safe from harm, loss, or damage. In our forests right now, we are seeing these things happen. We're seeing harm come to them. We're seeing loss, and we're seeing damage. And the threats are fire, disease, and insect infestation. And the solution to that, we have some amazing tools, is sustainable forestry, sustainable management. We know that there's no option to just walk away, right? Because they're alive. They're going to be moving through this. But how do we empower those ecosystems to thrive in face of these threats? Is to make sure that we make our forests healthy. That means sustainably harvesting them. 100 years ago, there was a very real threat to our forests. I would add not just fire and disease, I would add over logging, over harvest. But there have been some incredibly important laws put in place that govern what can be done. We can no longer over harvest legally. And my goal is to make sure we keep the set aside land set aside and protected. But it also means to help protect them against those threats of fire and disease and infestation from bugs. We have to go in there and keep them healthy, which means sustainably harvesting in areas. It means thinning. It means reducing underbrush. It means making sure that the habitats are as strong as they can be. Healthy forests can live through these threats, but our forests right now are not healthy. And as lands commissioner, my goal would be to make them healthy so that we can fight these threats that are coming. We can't. I wish we could tap out and say they're not going to happen, but they're going to happen. And I want to use innovation and creativity and collaboration to empower our forests to make it through these threats so that we can protect them for all Washingtonians.
Thank you.
Well, our world is changing. We are experiencing the impact of climate change all around us. We're seeing a rapid loss in biodiversity. That's the plant and animal species. And that's why I'm running for State Lands Commissioner, to improve the management of our public lands to meet these realities of today. And for me, that means managing our public lands in the public interest for all the people of the state of Washington, not just for the private industries that make money off these lands. And specifically, I believe there are things we can do to improve how we manage our state forests to still generate money for public services, but do a better job for climate and biodiversity. Specifically, I'm proposing that we defer the harvest of a small group of older forests. We call them mature legacy forests. They make up maybe 3% of our state-owned timberlands, but have an outsized impact on our climate. And so on day one, as your next lands commissioner, I'm going to instead bring forward other timber parcels to harvest in order to benefit our climate and biodiversity. And the good news is we can do this and still nurture rural economies, support good jobs, and yes, fully fund public services like schools. And we do it by simply harvesting other timber parcels. And in the long term, I'd like to see us grow the state's timberland holdings. We've done this successfully before. A fun fact, about 70% of our forestry takes place on private timberlands. The state only manages 30%. Sometimes those private timber companies will harvest the trees and then sell off the land for sprawl. I would like to use existing funds we have to purchase those lands, replant the trees, and put them back into forestry as a way to keep creating jobs while still protecting those special older mature forests. But the Department of Natural Resources doesn't just manage forests. We manage all of our state's aquatic lands. And I don't want us to be the generation that loses our iconic king salmon and our Puget Sound orca. That's why I want to boost our aquatic lands restoration teams so they can do more work with community groups to get rid of nasty creosote pilings and plant eelgrass and work with community groups to get rid of, old fishing gear. And it's why I want to do a better job of restoring the forest land alongside streams and rivers so that we have healthy salmon runs. And so we have an opportunity through taking those kinds of smart actions to continue to support good jobs and a strong economy, but also do better for our environment. At the end of the day, it's important to remember that if we want to have good jobs and a strong economy, we need to keep Washington State a great place to live.
Thank you.